So we're going to start off with making a few changes. First, we're going to get rid of this fetch result. And instead, we're going to use an array of model entity. And we're just going to initialize it to an empty array. And the reason why we're using an array now is that because we want to observe changes right away as new model entity gets appended to this array. If we use the fetch result, just like before, we will have to wait until the fetch result is complete, and that's not what we want to do today. And then we will have an array of URLs as well, and this will be digested in our fetchAsset call here. I already copied it. I'm just gonna paste it right here. And then we want to modify our fetchAsset call accordingly. Since the URL has already been digested here, we don't need to do guardlet. So we're gonna delete that right away. And then we want to iterate through our URLs, and then get the content from here, and then append it to the model entities. So what we can do is basically copy paste this. And then self.modelEntities append model entity. Oh, since this is a try await call, we need to wrap this in do catch block as well. So right now, I'm not going to worry about the error case at the moment because we have quite a few things to cover, and I don't want to get sidetracked and waste my time on it. And after that, we need to go back to our reality view and then change this as well. Okay, that should be it for converting our old view into, well, this new convention. And I want to add a few more things here as well. I want to see how long it may take for us to download everything and then digest it inside the view model. And then we can calculate how long it would take in here. So what I'm going to do is to have some kind of time calculation set up. And then we're going to display how long it took to complete this call. And I'm just going to put some kind of unique string here so we can filter it out easily later. And on top of that, I want to have one more debugging print statement here as well. And then we can give it a run. And we can see how long it would take for this reality view to digest everything. So we got one done. A few more things, and we can just move it around. Okay, let's see how long it took. So it took about 14 seconds, which is not bad, but I feel like we can do it a lot better than this. So let's take a look at how we're doing things in our fetchAsset call. So we got this URL, and we're iterating through every single URL inside this URL array. And then for each one of those, we are basically creating a new model entity by calling this convenience init initializer that we wrote last time. And as you can see, we're marking this as try await. And what this means is that every iteration of this for loop will have to wait until this is done. After creating this model entity and making it tappable, then we're going to append it to model entity. After that, we do the second iteration, basically doing the same thing, making a model entity, appending it, and then doing the same thing all over again. So that means all this operation here is getting done concurrently instead of asynchronously. So the difference between concurrent operation and asynchronous operation is that for concurrent operation, a task would have to finish before you can execute the next one. In asynchronous operation, you can basically start as soon as possible and you don't need to wait until the previous call has been finished. So, okay, how do we make this fetch asset more like a asynchronous? I'm gonna write a different function here. I'm just gonna name it fetchAsset fast because it's already like marked as async, and if I want to name it fetchAsset async, it's gonna be a little confusing. And from here, we're going to utilize something called with taskGroup, and we can say await with taskGroup of this. So okay, this of will have to be a data type. So basically, since we're dealing with model entity and since we need to try await on this one, we're gonna say model entity optional .self, and this body will take in as a task group, and we're gonna name it task group here. And here we can utilize task group to do our jobs asynchronously. And we can just start by writing for URLs and URLs task group add task. After async tests are done inside the task group, the return values are stored inside the task group. And then we're going to plug off those return values of all the try await model entity calls. Since we're not doing any kind of error handling and just put it as an optional, I'm just going to name this model entity optional in task group. And then we're going to check, see if it's optional. And it can be optional because we're marking it as try question mark. And if it is not optional, then we're going to append to it. We can just copy and paste this right here. And that's pretty much it. Let me explain what this task group is. So basically, think of it as a confined space designated for your collection of asynchronous tasks. So I'm going to repeat that. Confined space designated for your collection of asynchronous tasks. So basically, it works as a room for your task, and and then it stores the return value of your task. So in our case, we can say that we are storing the result of our asynchronous model entity operations in the task group. And after it's done, we move on to this block right here, and then we iterate through this optional model entity inside the task group, and then we take a look at it and see if it has any like a value, and if it has any value, we make it tappable, and then we add on to model entity. Well, our model entity right up here. Okay, so let's see how fast this can get. Instead of awaiting on viewModel.fetchAsset, we're gonna say await fetchAsset fast. And then we're gonna give it a run. And we can see that it took about 9 seconds. Compare that to 14 seconds or like 14, 15 seconds before. It's actually a pretty dramatic change right here. And this is all thanks to not having to wait. The previous operation needs to be, well, done before we can execute one another. So whenever you're loading a collection of large data, consider using asynchronous calls. It will dramatically improve user experience and loading time with very little overhead. And that was it for today. Hopefully it was helpful for you and for your future project. And if I helped you in any way, hit that like, subscribe button, and let me know in the comment section. I'll see you soon in my next video then.